So I'm now going to hand over to Harriet Minter. What's been happening, Harriet? What's in the news?
Hello. Right, we can tell you what's in the news. Can we have the next slide, please, Madeleine? Thank you. So first up, we've had two big reports in this quarter that have come out. So they come out every year, I think. And they're both worth having a read of. If you are like, hang on, my report never gets mentioned on this, please send it to me, and I promise I will put it in the next one. The McKinsey Women in the Workplace has been going for about 7 years now, I think. And this year, I am going to describe as though I was a young millennial influencer with TLDR, we are all burnt out. So what we've learned from what McKinsey have seen for women in the last 18 months is essentially they've now reached a point where they're pretty much all on the edge of burnout. And we're all kind of feeling like we have too much going on and not enough time to do it. And we'll look at some of the reasons why for that as we go through. Also, the Credit Suisse Gender 3000. I don't know why it's called the Gender 3000. It reminds me of the Busted song, We Went to the Year 3000 and We All Lived Underwater. I don't know if that's what they were referencing, but that's what's coming up for me. So Credit Suisse Gender 3000 actually looks much more at the representation of women on boards. Good news is it's now up to around 28% across the world, with 20% at C-suite level, which is probably the best it's ever been, so that's great. The bad news is for female entrepreneurs. There's lots in there actually about how we can support female entrepreneurs better, particularly when it comes to funding. UK work needs right to disconnect amidst overtime epidemic. You might have seen this article about a month ago. It went viral. It's a very big piece. Calls for the UK government to enact laws similar to the ones that they have in France, which say if you are not required to respond to emails, answer messages, do any work outside of your designated working hours. So this is in response to research which has shown that over the pandemic, all of our working days have stretched. So now that we don't really have the official kind of start or end or a commute to bookmark both ends of our working day, we don't have to run for a train anymore. What's happened is that we've all started work earlier and we are finishing later. And for those of you who are going back into the office, what you might find actually is that as you're going back in, you're like, hang on, I'm almost losing time each day. So I've got to extend my working days in the office as well, because we've started to fill that time with work. So this is an argument which says if you are feeling pressure from your employers to respond to emails outside of hours, we need to make it illegal for that to be a thing. I think it's probably quite an extreme example. I don't think it's going to get passed at any point. I don't think government are particularly interested in it, but perhaps something for you to take back and think about within your networks. If we have these really high levels of burnout happening, how can we look at encouraging people to actually work in more set hours to perhaps not extend their days as much? The next one, why women need the office. This is an article from The Economist, I think. Again, had a massive response to this on social media. Sometimes people write articles and then I wonder if perhaps they read them back and think, maybe I was just in a bad mood when I wrote that day. What this article actually is arguing for is the fact that if women don't go back to the office, we're going to see more and more women being isolated because of hybrid working. So it's saying that actually what will happen is that we will see a generation where women stay at home and work from home while also doing all of the childcare, domestic labour, and men go into the office. I really, really hope that does not happen. I hope we can do this better than that. But I guess in order to really do that, we have to think about how we encourage men to perhaps spend more time at home, to think about how they can kind of balance out that domestic labour as well. I think Simon might be talking about that. And then also on the burnout, parental burnout, how juggling kids and work in a global pandemic brought us to the brink. I'm going to be honest, I should put a trigger warning on this article. If you have kids, maybe you want to stay away from this. It's too much of your lived experience. If you don't have kids and you want to know what your colleagues are going through, I do recommend giving it a read. It's just a really honest and raw account of what it's been like over the last 18 months. The next piece, your workplace is flexible and hybrid, but is it feminist? Is it? Because that's what we're trying to create here, a feminist utopia of feminist workplaces. This is a Medium piece from a woman who specialises in looking at inclusion, and she asked some of the kind of more pointed questions. So if you think you're doing really well because you've got flexible working or because you offer hybrid working, she's asking you to just check in and see whether those things really work for women. This one is a little bit worrying for any of us who work in that D&I space, and perhaps definitely worth thinking about if you are working in that D&I space and you are spending money on D&I programs. Looking actually at their impact and effectiveness is really important, because we've seen research showing that UK employees fear losing their jobs due to equity, diversity, inclusion programs. So this is the kind of idea that's been spoken about before, that when we run a diversity and inclusion program, people don't respond to that in a kind of, oh my gosh, I have seen the light, I realize how unequal my workplace is, I'm going to do something about it. Instead, they come to a place of fear where they think, oh my gosh, this means that my job is going. Now, a brilliant friend of mine says that inclusion is not a pie. We don't have to split it out. In fact, there is enough for everybody. You don't just get a slice. But we need to find ways that we can reassure people of that when we're running these programs. 1 in 4 Black employees can't be themselves at work. This looked at how people feel the need to mask at work, how they feel they have to conform or hold parts of themselves back. It's particularly a problem within the Black community, and feeling like they can't actually bring all of their own life experiences and true selves to work without being judged or perhaps even discriminated against because of it. Unilever tells staff work from home as long as it's not too far from the office. I actually really like this policy. I think it's really good. So Unilever have created a policy which says you can, you don't have to be in the office all the time. You can be remote, but we do need you to live within 24 hours of the office. So you need to be able to get into our head office within 24 hours. So you can't pick up and move to Bali, unfortunately, but you could perhaps move to the south of Spain, which would be delightful. We finally know the true cost of all those bad slacks. This is an article from the Atlantic. I don't know if you have Slack in your organization. I honestly think it is the greatest tyranny to hit our workplaces in the last 20 years. But actually this article is really interesting in is how we communicate via instant message. So if you have instant message in any form in your organization, maybe Microsoft Teams or maybe Google Chat, and people do that thing where they send you a message which is like, hi, Harriet, and it pings up on your screen and you respond back, hi, and then you wait and you don't get a response and you wait, and the fear starts to set in as you think, oh my God, why are they contacting me? What do they want from me? What is this painful silence I am now sat in? So this is a great article with lots of useful tips and advice on actually how we can use instant messenger better in our organization. And 2 kind of final research pieces that you might want to look at towards the end. So the future of work should mean working less. Absolutely brilliant essay that was in the New York Times, really looking at where our belief around work and productivity and the value of both of those things comes from. If you really want to get on board with your post-pandemic midlife crisis, this is the piece for you. It's going to throw up all your beliefs around everything you've been working for the last 20 years. It's a really, really good read. I highly recommend it. And then finally, Gender and the Dynamics of Economic Seminars. This is actually a research paper. You might want to read the whole paper, but you could probably just read the intro. And it looks at how we communicate with women in economic seminars. So it looked at women presenting their work in an economic seminar at university. And what they found was that women faced more challenges, and those challenges were more hostile than the ones men faced. So when women present their research and their work, we're seeing that they get faced with more challenges, and those challenges are more hostile. So just worth maybe reading that, maybe sending it around and asking people to keep a little eye out for how that might happen in your organisation. And that is all for this session. Thank you very much.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Harriet. And Leona will dig out some of those reports and make sure they're on the Gender Networks portal. Do check that out, because when we allude to any reports, we tend to file them on there, or you can also find them on We Are the City. So thank you very much. I'm not too depressed by that, Harriet. You've done really well.
It's a good one, doesn't it? I've given you a little something, tips, some midlife crisis, some joy. It's good.
Yeah, it's not a good story, but it's better than some that we've heard. So thank you very much for that.